Hello, this is Dr. Jack Wolfson, the paleocardiologist, and welcome to another edition of the Healthy Heart Show. And today I am honored to have a fantastic guest, Dr. Justin Marchegiani, and Dr. Justin from Justin Health, and he'll tell you all about his backstory and what he's got going on. But I've met with Justin on several occasions. Justin and I spoke together at Paleo Effects a couple years ago, and he's really on point, really on mission. He is a doctor of chiropractic, so of course the doctors of chiropractic totally have all my heart and affection, because the chiropractic message and chiropractic lifestyle is what got me to where I am today, thanks to my wife, Dr. Heather, but you all know that story. All right, Dr. Justin, welcome to the Healthy Heart Show.
Dr. Jack, it is a pleasure to be here. Again, I love all things functional medicine because we have the mindset and the framework of getting to the root cause. Like chiropractic, there's a vitalistic approach where we believe the body can heal itself. Our job is to go in and figure out what are the physical, chemical, and emotional barriers that are holding our bodies back from healing and addressing them. So, of course, being a cardiologist like yourself, we're trying to get to the root cause of inflammation. What's driving that inflammation? And as functional medicine people, we focus on the diet as kind of a foundational paleo template, and then we dig in deeper to get to the hidden sources of inflammation, whether it's hormonal, whether it's gut, whether it's toxicity, whether it's nutritional deficiency. So it's always exciting digging into the underlying deep issues. It's like every patient's their own little CSI case where you have to uncover the clues to help get them better.
Yeah, obviously I totally agree. And I especially love, the fact, it's kind of like that chiropractic mantra about, take away what's damaging the body, and the body will heal itself, and what, from above, above to below, inside to out.
Yes.
If I didn't butcher that too much, but it really is that whole philosophy about how the body is meant to heal. When you cut yourself shaving, when you injure yourself, the body is meant to heal itself. And if you take away the trauma, if you keep cutting yourself in the same area, the area is not going to heal. But if you remove the injurious method, then the body will heal itself. And I love that from the chiropractors. So absolutely fantastic. Tell me some of the backstory. What got you interested in chiropractic and then of course functional medicine?
Well, I love chiropractic because of its vitalistic approach, where it assumed the body can heal itself, and if there are some root causal issues that need to be addressed. Now, on the chiropractic side, physical stress via the spine and the nervous system is what's being looked at. Now, we know, myself knowing, and probably your wife as well, that we're not as well fed as we were 100 years ago when we were created chiropractic, right? We know nutrition, the toxicity, the soil supply. So there's a nutritional component that wasn't necessarily a big factor 100 years ago. A lot more toxins and a lot more stress that affects our digestive system and immune system. So if you can combine the chiropractic and then dig in deeper on the nutrition side with functional medicine, that's big. So I worked in surgery for a bit. I wanted to be a surgeon. I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. And I was that person in the OR that would hold the limbs of these diabetic patients that would come in as the surgeon would tie off the vasculature and amputate the limb. And I'd be the person to wrap it up and bring it down to the morgue. And I wanted to get ahead of this. And I would talk to these doctors, these surgeons, say, how can we get ahead of this? How can we prevent it? And there was a total disconnect because this guy would be outside smoking a bud or eating a donut. There was a total lifestyle, nutritional disconnect of how that patient got on their table, and the things that they were doing were probably predisposing them to being on their own table at some point, someday. So I wanted to get ahead of that and look at what we can do to prevent that from happening. And that's where chiropractic, nutrition, and functional medicine, I felt like connected.
Well, certainly, and I know those doctors that you're talking about, and the medical doctors are the absolute worst to ask for advice. When it comes to prevention, of course, the medical doctors have nothing. When I give those presentations and speeches, I show that empty doctor bag as symbolic to what they have for prevention, and of course, statin drugs and aspirin are not prevention. Tell me some of the things that you would say are maybe like your top 3 things for prevention for anybody looking to prevent cardiovascular disease or any other disease for that matter.
I think the first thing is we start with inflammation. Now, what are the big sources of inflammation? At a foundational level, I think the diet has to be dialed in. What does that mean? I like a paleo template. I don't say paleo diet because a template, one, it assumes the foods are going to be anti-inflammatory, nutrient dense, and low in toxins. That's number one. Number two is we adjust the macronutrients according to what that patient needs. Now, as you know, most people with maybe accelerated cholesterol and inflammation, if it's from excess carbohydrate or high amounts of insulin, we know we can make tons of cholesterol being a vegan. I've seen it so many times because that enzyme that makes cholesterol, that HMG-CoA reductase enzyme, gets stimulated by insulin. So we want to make sure your diet, we have a good paleo template, and we dial in the macronutrients according to your metabolic needs. Most people that have metabolic damage and insulin resistance do better with a lower carbohydrate kind of paleo template, so to speak. Number two, making sure we can digest our foods. Just because you're eating a great diet, if we can't digest, break down, assimilate, absorb, and utilize, it's like going to Whole Foods, buying a whole bunch of really good perishable organic groceries and leaving it out on the counter for the week and not putting it in the fridge. It rots. So we have to make sure that we can digest and break down those foods. And the next is going to be the sleep component. And really making sure you get into bed, you're getting at least 8 hours, getting to bed on the other side of midnight, and you're able to sleep through the night, because that really activates the parasympathetic nervous system for rest, digest, and healing to start.
And of course, sleep is so important. And I tell, people that there's really three main factors when it comes to overall health and wellness. Yeah. And of course, you can go on more and more, but, for me, sleep is probably number one. Sunshine is number two, and food is number three. I think that you can eat some of the worst diets, yet if you're getting the sleep and you're getting the sunshine, that the body can get through that. Although, of course, we're not going to recommend it. We're going to say do all three, but you can be having the best, you're going to be on the best diet in the world, but if you're not getting the sleep and you're not getting the sunshine, you're done. And whether you believe in the story of creation or evolution or both or whatever it may be, in every story, the sun came first before, and sleep came, to all life on Earth before there was ever any semblance of food. So maybe tell us a little bit more as far as what you think about sleep, and then tell me a little bit about your opinion on sunshine, because I know, of course, you were for a long period of time, you were living down in Texas, so you were getting plenty of sunshine down there. But tell me about sleep and tell me about sun.
Well, sleep's obviously important. We know the hours between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. we really maximize and tap into our growth hormone, which is really important for stimulating and regeneration of our physical body. And then we know that 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. is where we really turn over a lot of our brain chemicals, our neurotransmitters. So mood and focus and cognitive-wise, we can function. So we want to tap into both because we want to heal our body, but also heal our mind and emotions, which are all run off of neurotransmitters and hormones. So being a functional medicine hormone specialist like myself, sleep's so important. That's number one. Number two, vitamin D is important. The reason why is because, one, you're getting a lot of it from sun. The sunlight stimulates that circadian rhythm. It really jumpstarts that circadian rhythm. It initiates that cortisol response in the morning, and that cortisol drops down and that melatonin goes up in an inverse correlation. And the cortisol is important to have during the day because of the energy and the blood sugar stability, but it's also highly anti-inflammatory. We just kind of want the Goldilocks, not too high, not too low. And then we want to tap into that melatonin at night. And that good vitamin D and sunlight really helps initiate that circadian rhythm. The best thing you can do when you're off your rhythm, especially if you're traveling, ground in the morning first thing and watch that sunrise to really get that hypothalamus, pituitary, pineal axis kind of dialed in.
Oh, that was explained so well, so well. And, obviously you can watch and you can listen to so many different people, and they can break down all of the hormones and the biochemistry of what happens when you get sunshine, when you get the appropriate sleep. And I think it's all fantastic that doctors like you understand that. But for the average person that's listening to this, maybe they have obviously another occupation that's outside of the health space. Even if they're in the health space, it's just a matter of just going with Mother Nature. And when I call myself the paleocardiologist, it's not just about the paleo nutrition. It's about the paleo lifestyle. It's about living in concordance with Mother Nature. And like you said, waking up in the morning, walk, stand barefoot outside, watching the sun rise, because of course that's infrared energy that's coming at us. Yes. That's the red light energy that's coming at us, and that has a role. And then the noontime UVA, UVB has a role, and then the late afternoon sunshine has a role as well. So that's all super important. All right, let me ask you this, Dr. Justin. So somebody comes in and they have a high amount of inflammation. They come to you and they say, Doc, I had my blood testing done. I'm very concerned. I've got a family history of XYZ, which you and I know means nothing because family history is bogus. Right. But inflammation, where do you go from there?
So off the bat, what kind of inflammation are we talking about? So we have our clinical indications of inflammation. Achy joints, right? Number 2 symptom, people don't think about it, brain fog and cognitive issues. Why? Because when you have inflammation in the brain, it activates these immune cells called microglial cells. And these are immune cells, but when they're activated, you can get brain fog. And that's really important, right? Because if we have cognitive issues, we keep memory recall, those kind of things, we literally feel like we're in the fog when we're thinking and processing. That could be inflammation in the brain. Also digestive issues. If we're not able to digest and break down our food, there's probably stress and inflammation going on in the gut, either number 1, because you have bacterial overgrowth or kind of fungal overgrowth, or 2, because the food's sitting and putrefying and rancidifying and fermenting in your gut. And that's messing up your motility. It's messing up you being able to extract nutrition. It's causing a dysbiosis, more bad bacteria than good bacteria. Good bacteria is designed to eat poop and poop nutrition. Bad bacteria is designed to eat your nutrition and it poops poop. So bad bacteria makes you more toxic, steals your nutrition. Good bacteria adds nutritional value into your gut. So having the good bacterial balance, having the brain cognitive stuff under control, and then also making sure clinical things like the achiness and the pain. And we can assess this C-reactive protein systemically, ESR, erythrocyte sedimentation rate. We can look at homocysteine. We can look at inflammation in the gut via calprotectin as well. And then you can look at also leaky gut markers as well, zonulin, occludin, LPS markers, fibrinogen. These are all some good markers to assess inflammation, but we got to look at the clinical. That's why doctors like yourself and myself, we look at the clinical indicators too.
Absolutely fantastic. So what do you think's going on with the digestion? Why aren't people digesting? Are they, is this a deficiency in stomach, obviously hydrochloric acid? Are they missing pancreatic enzymes, emulsifiers from the liver? So is it kind of like that axis or the trio of the stomach, the liver, and the pancreas? And I say this because when I was first going holistic back in 2005, one of the first books my wife ever gave to me was by Jonathan Wright, and I'm sure you read this as well, Why Stomach Acid is Good for You. And I'm like, oh my God, I spent 10 years in medical training, and those first 4 years in medical school, sure, we learned about stomach acid and the role of stomach acid, but somewhere along the way, it was just like lost. And all we started talking about was there was too much stomach acid, which of course is never true. And and then of course we all need to be on these. First of all, of course, it was Tums and Rolaids and antacids, and then it was the H2 blockers like Tagamet and Pepsid and stuff like that. And then it went on from there to become the proton pump inhibitors. And then all of a sudden, my future wife hands me this book, Why Stomach Acid is Good for You, and it was like like a bomb was dropped on me. I couldn't believe it.
So it's really interesting, right? Because if you just kind of draw a line, I think this line will separate kind of functional medicine, holistic doctors like yourself from a conventional-minded allopathic physician. Number one, when you go see an allopath, what are the major thing that they're recommending? They're recommending things that are essentially blocking or inhibiting function or physiology in the body, right? You kind of mentioned it, proton pump inhibitors, beta blockers, ACE inhibitors, H2 blockers, right? They're all inhibiting or blocking physiology with the end goal of controlling a symptom. Now, we draw that line on the other side of the fence. We're looking at what are the roadblocks in physiology, why that physiology is not expressing itself optimally. Is it a nutrient issue? Is there a digestive compound that's missing from breaking those things down? Are we activating our fight or flight nervous system, our sympathetic nervous system too much? And we're looking at the root cause. So I call it the SSS approach, right? We have symptoms at the bottom, okay? Back pain, mood issues, digestive issues. Most allopaths write a prescription. Here's a prescription for each one of those. We go upstream to the underlying systems that may not be working. That could be the cardiovascular. It could be the digestive. It could be the hormone. It could be the detoxification system. And we address these systematically, and we go upstream to the underlying stressors, physical, chemical, and emotional. And we would maybe look at these things individually, maybe do tests, maybe do food logs, dive in deeper to address the whole triad. So the underlying stressors, the systems that are now out of balance, and then also at the symptom level below. But we got to address the whole thing holistically. And then kind of talking to you here, it's that sympathetic nervous system overload that is affecting the digestive aspect. It's affecting the ability to rest and digest and secrete all the compounds, because when we're fight or flight, we're consumed with taking everything away from the core and bringing it to the muscles to fight, flee, and punch. And we want to bring it back inside by activating the parasympathetic nervous system response.
Absolutely love it. So I guess, from because the question is, why aren't people producing enough stomach acid? And contrary to what we believe we see on the television, we are not deficient in we don't have too much stomach acid. We have too little, and the average person has no idea of that. And they actually in the commercials, they never actually make that claim that there's too much stomach acid. They never say that because they know that's not true. Now, they make the average consumer think that because they show, the fire raging up into their esophagus. They show all the acid going in the wrong way. But of course, the problem is not too much stomach acid. It's too little stomach acid. As you know, obviously, there's a very rare situation called Zollinger-Ellison syndrome, where people have a tumor of their stomach, gastronoma, where they're secreting too much stomach acid, and that, like, nobody has. I've never seen a case out of that. It's like a 1 in 5 million diagnosis. It's so rare. But
and just to highlight one thing you're saying, right? Most people, they're right. Like, they do feel this extra acid thing that's happening, and they're like, okay, that makes sense. We got to block that. But why is that acid event occurring? It's occurring because the food is rotting, putrefying, and fermenting, and then these organic acids rise up, and that's the burning you feel. But that food's only rotting because it wasn't completely digested to begin with. That's why the acid can actually help, because it prevents that food from rotting later and then producing secondary acids after the fact. So it's the sympathetic nervous system response, the stress, the inflammatory foods, the on-the-go, not chewing your food up enough, drinking too much water with that meal, being on the go, poor diet, all of those things are what's driving that incomplete digestion, and then the acid comes after the fact.
All right, so you personally, in your program, and when you work with patients, and I'll definitely obviously give you, I want people to know where they can find out more about you, because this is phenomenal information. Where do we always start with putting people on a digestive enzyme product, some kind of betaine HCl with the pancreatic enzymes and the gastric enzymes in there, as we continue to kind of work with them on balancing out their autonomic nervous system, making sure that they're getting sleep, getting the sunshine? I mean, to me and you, obviously the power of the sun coming into the stomach and the liver and the pancreas helps to energize those structures for better function. How do you see it? Does everybody need stomach enzymes right off the bat?
Well, the first low-hanging fruit is this. Make sure, number one, the underlying sympathetic nervous system stress is addressed, whatever that is. Are you eating on the way to work? Are you eating at your table while you get in a fight with your family at the same time? Are you drinking a ton of water while you're eating? Water's got a pH of 7. Your stomach needs a pH of 2. You're raising that pH up. Is there an H. pylori infection? Are you not chewing your food? Are you not masticating enough, right? You have 32 teeth, so you're going to chew 32 times. Ideally, it should be like an oatmeal-like consistency, okay? So we got to make sure the foundation, the chewing, the not hydrating significantly. I mean, a little bit of water here, sipping some wine, swallowing some water for some pills, not a big deal. And then making sure the underlying diet and lifestyle things are good, because I see food allergens cause acid reflux and acid burning. So gluten, dairy, potentially those kind of things, obviously any refined sugar, those kind of compounds as well. So make sure the food allergy is addressed. Make sure the underlying diet and lifestyle kind of hygiene is good. And then the next thing would be taking the enzymes and the acids, because that's the low-hanging fruit. Because most people, their money for their health should be invested in their food. And if we can't access all of it, it's like depositing your paycheck and someone saying, oh, you only can pull out 20% of it. Well, I'm getting robbed 80%, right? So if I can take that enzyme and that acid, I can access more of it, and I'm giving my digestive system a crutch. And the nice thing is things like hydrochloric acid do not disrupt the feedback loop to gastrin. So it's not like taking testosterone and your testicles shrink. Your feedback loop with gastrin will not decrease by taking HCl or enzymes. So we're not going to be disrupting anything in the brain.
Fantastic. So I would assume that your goal is that the person would not be on digestive enzymes for life. It's that, hey, listen, you're on this. This is actually going to benefit you. It's not going to hurt you in the long run. There's no long-term side effects whatsoever. But that the end game is that once we tune up your lifestyle, once we improve your eating habits, once you're eating the right foods as well, then you're going to, we'll be able to wean you off of the digestive supplements, just like we'd be able to get you off of pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, my goal is always, number one of the best things you can keep in your medicine cabinet is HCl and enzymes. Okay, if you're eating a bigger meal than normal, hey, Thanksgiving's coming up, right? You're going out to eat, you're having a special meal for that week, or you're having dinner and your kid's stressing you out, or you're at work and you just got off in between patients and you're a little bit too stressed. That's where it's really good to take these things once you're stable and your physiology is kind of at homeostasis for acute stress responses, questionable foods, and or just too much. That's where it's really good to tie those in. So it's nice to have that plan B, but in general, doing all the things we're talking about can help. And then even things like, we call them bitters, things like ginger or gentian. Like if you do a little ginger tea before you eat, that can really help your digestion as well.
Fantastic. And I was talking with Josh Axe, and he's a huge fan of the bitters as well. He loves that as part of the digestive approach. And, I think also, one of the things you mentioned before, of course, where historically people that are overweight, they've always been told to drink a lot of water with their meals and to fill up their stomach. And I was guilty of that as well, telling people to do that, like really blast yourself, full of water. And all that's doing is just causing so much trouble and problems. And, you mentioned the wine, and I think I agree with you. Little sips of, red wine during a meal. I'm not a big alcohol guy. I know you're not either. Just doing little sips. I mean, as opposed to most people, when they say they drink wine, they're drinking like a bottle at night. And if you're having 2 glasses of wine with your meal, you're in trouble.
Exactly. And then if you are going to be doing some alcohol, throw some activated charcoal in there, throw a little bit of vitamin C or NAC. So if you're going to do that once or twice a week, there's some ways that we can use nutraceuticals to kind of help buffer out some of those side effects. But also H. pylori. H. pylori, it produces a compound called urease that takes the urea from protein. It spits out ammonia. Ammonia's got a pH of 11. So if we need a nice 2 for a pH in that stomach, and we throw some 11 in there, well, now we're raising our pH back up to more neutral. So like just kind of the physiology 101 for the listeners, right? We need that nice low pH between 1.5 and 2.5. That acid environment activates pepsinogen into pepsin. That's a proteolytic enzyme that starts digesting protein. All of this stuff gets slurried into a swirl called chyme that gets released into the small intestine. That's the second step. That nice acidity causes a release of a hormone called CCK, cholecystic kinin, which triggers the gallbladder to release all that good bile salt, which has been concentrating, and then it causes the enzymes from the pancreas, all the lipolytic, that's fat digesting enzymes, and proteolytic, right? Protein digesting enzymes. So we have now all the enzymes being released and bile salts being released. And then we make a whole bunch of bicarbonate to bring that pH back up because we don't want a high pH we don't want a low pH in the small intestine. That's how you get an ulcer. So that's how that digestive cascade works. And the first thing that starts it off is good acid levels.
Absolutely fantastic. Fantastic stuff. You explain it so well, so easy, for everybody to understand. I certainly appreciate that. H. pylori, you diagnose somebody with H. pylori. What's your protocol?
Well, with H. pylori, number one, we want to make sure there's enough acidity because if we don't digest the food, people that have H. pylori typically have a bacterial overgrowth too, and they're not digesting food well. So that's number one. Number two, we want to cut out the inflammation in their diet because they already have a lot of inflammation in their gut. H. pylori is associated with extra inflammation. We want to cut the inflammation out. And then number 3, we want to make sure there's no other co-infections. H. pylori and blastocystis hominis is very common, as well as fungal overgrowth. So we want to address the blasto and fungal overgrowth. And we want to make sure we use specific herbs that can be helpful. So higher dose oil of oregano, higher dose mastic gum, clove, higher dose berberines. These are all really effective. Now, again, you want to work with a functional medicine doctor. You don't want to just say, oh, Dr. J said these herbs, because you want to plug this into a bigger overall program. So with me, it's the 6 R's, right? Remove the bad foods, replace the enzymes, acids, and bile salts, repair the gut lining and the hormones. Fourth R is removing the infections. Most people are trained because of antibiotics. Oh, I have a sore throat, amoxicillin. Oh, I have a gut infection. They go right to that 4th R, and you have to work on the first 3 R's first. That's the diet, the stress management, the sleep, the digestive support, the gut healing, the inflammation reduction, the adrenal support, and then we go to the 4th R, and a lot of times that's 1 to 2 months into a program because we're laying the foundation. You don't go and get your house built and have your contractor start on the 3rd floor. They're on that foundational level, building it nice and strong first.
Fantastic stuff. And of course, I mean, I'm sure you feel strongly about this as well,
yeah.
That when it comes to the autonomic nervous system, that really is an expertise of the doctor of chiropractic. So when you're talking about balancing off the, sympathetic overdrive with parasympathetic underdrive and the brain through the spinal cord innervates all of the organs as well. So if there's dysfunction there because you've got a vertebral subluxation in your spine, of course, that has to be addressed by the DC.
So if we have stress in our nervous system, right, we can also have what's called a viscerosomatic reflux, where that organ is on the same 2-lane sensory highway as the muscles in the area around it. So that can easily cause the spine to not move properly. And we need movement. Movement allows us to kind of feel where we're at in space and time. It's like walking into a dark room and you can't use your hands to feel around. You're bumping in. So your spine needs that movement. That movement activates a specific part of the nervous system called the IML, which dampens the sympathetic response. So if we dampen that sympathetic response, we increase the parasympathetic response. The parasympathetic response is resting and digesting, and that plugs back into the digestive section we were just on. So having that movement is really important, and we need to make sure that there's good alignment in there and movement, not that fixation. And our inflammation in our organs can also cause our spines to not work properly. So a good holistic chiropractor is going to move the spine accordingly via a specific adjustment, but also ask you about food things and give other support to help reduce inflammation in the body too.
Who has better barbecue, Kansas City or Austin, Texas?
That's a great question. Now in Texas, they have moist brisket and regular brisket. So they delineate between the fatty brisket and the non-fatty. Now in Kansas City, they have something called burnt ends, and that's pretty cool too. So it's a little bit different, but I would say Austin wins on the ribs, but Kansas City wins on some of the brisket.
And what about Thanksgiving? Would you rather have ham or turkey? What's the Marchegiani's going to have?
So we got a 16-pound organic, free-range, pasture-fed turkey. A lot of the conventional turkeys are accumulating lots of salmonella, big reports coming up. So highest quality pasture-fed as possible. 6 different servings. We will have a little bit of organic GMO-free potatoes. We're going to have gluten-free stuffing that's going to be celery and carrot-based. We're going to have homemade cranberry sauce sweetened with a tiny bit of honey. We'll have green beans. We'll have some sweet potato as well. And then my apple cake, which will be a little bit of arrowroot powder in there and coconut flour, very low amounts of organic coconut palm cane. So we got it all lined up, ready to go.
Wow, you are ready to go. Fantastic. Sounds
My wife and I were going over the menu. I'm like, I want these 6 sides, and I want the highest quality pasture-fed, organic turkey as possible because of the pesticide residue. And again, if you're not getting organic, you're just getting a turkey eating a whole bunch of Roundup, probably grains in their corn.
I think you also mentioned too, just kind of off the cuff there, as far as the potatoes being preferably, ideally they would be organic because if they're not organic, they're likely genetically modified potatoes. And a lot of people don't know that. Sure, they know that corn is GMO and soy is GMO, but a lot of times they've never heard the fact that potatoes are as well. And that's a major problem. Where are people going to find Dr. J, as you call yourself, Dr. Justin? Where do people find you, and what do they get when they get there?
You can head over to justinhealth.com, JUSTINHEALTH. Again, I have a podcast, a YouTube channel. I speak to the hundreds of thousands a month via my various mediums. You can subscribe there. I see patients all over the world as well. And because I'm in the trenches with patients 60 hours a week, doctor is Latin for teacher. So I got to teach. So I think of lots of metaphors and analogies to bridge complex information to make it easy. And so you can extract the actual action items. People don't really care what it means. They want to know, how can I utilize it? And that's what I want people to walk away from this podcast. How can I use the information here to get myself better? So if you want to reach out to me there, you can do so. There's a little link, and I look forward to chatting to anyone that's available.
Absolutely fantastic. So here you heard it from Dr. Justin Marchegiani, and he gave us some great information. And Dr. Justin, I appreciate you so much being on the show. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Best to you and your family this Thanksgiving and holiday season. And for the Healthy Heart Show, I'm Dr. Jack Wolfson, board-certified cardiologist, a paleo cardiologist, living the paleo lifestyle. Bring it to yourself. The answers are right here, whether it's myself, Dr. Justin, or all the other people that Dr. Justin interviews and I interview. We got the answers for you. All you have to do is pay attention, listen, and follow the information and lead your best life. We'll see you on the next episode.
I want to highlight one last thing too. When someone does a podcast and they're a clinician like yourself, there's deeper questions. There's a lot of people out there doing podcasts that aren't clinicians. When you listen to a podcast done by a clinician like yourself, you're able to extract more actionable information. So I hope everyone's subscribing and appreciates the great clinical questions you asked today. I really appreciate it.
You got it. And we'll have more information in the show notes as well. We will see you next time.
Thank you.